Hi, I'm back with another bullet journal video today. Today we are setting up my June bullet journal, and first off we have the title. I got this sort of inspiration from seeing a very similar concept of drawing these sort of flowers and leaves into the month. The one that I saw was for May, so I just sort of adapted it for June. And I drew all these little flowers and I left some room in between so that way it had this more layered effect, and then going over everything with some white Sakura jelly roll to really make everything pop. Next up is the calendar, and I really just drew everything out freehand, did not bother with a ruler this time. And on the right, I ended up just putting my mood tracker right there. I didn't really feel like making a separate page for my mood tracker because I think that sometimes it's easier for me to just look at everything on a single page. So I colored in the moon or the sun, not exactly sure what that one really is. But I also was inspired from another bullet journal setup, and there was this mood tracker that looked very similar to this, so I just sort of drew everything out and made sure that I had enough stuff for every single day of the month. And then I put all of the different colors and the moods they would represent at the bottom with a quote that just says, "Tell me how you really feel." Then I went in and added all the numbers on the top left corner for the calendar, and I also have my YouTube tracker at the top. So I do have a little bit more than 1.02k at the time that I am recording this voiceover, but that is the amount that I had right before June had begun, and I just added this very pretty washi tape in. Next up are my habit trackers. So this is sort of another idea that I took inspiration from. I saw Vivid Scribbles on Instagram making these sort of like mountains and hills and rivers, which is what I sort of tried to emulate, so I kind of wanted to make it my own. But you'll see that between each panel, the colors sort of continue onto the next little block. I just wrote in the names of each of these habits that I'm trying to track. And then in the top right of this page, I sort of drew everything in an outline of what I want to color it in with. And each of these will signify a day that I get 10,000 steps, because that is definitely something I don't need to track every single day, but I only really need 12 every month. That's my goal. I really like how each of these little habit calendars actually have the same color as the drawing above, so you'll see that the colors transition across those little calendars. And then on the right, I just made a notes and monthly favorites page. This one's very simple, it's just a lot of little sparklies and little things to do note on there, and some washi tape, of course. Next up is my very simple expense tracker. I find that I really barely use these, so I wanted to make it as simple as possible to avoid falling into that trap. And then I just made a tiny little drawing with a moon over the mountains with some roses and clouds. And I originally had this as a notes page, but I just changed it to a plans page because I have a lot of things that I am planning for my booktube channel and for other projects that are coming up in the next few months. Next up is my TBR page. So of course I have to start out with my dice game. If you haven't already watched my June TBR, I explain all of the different things that I'm reading for the month of June as relates to the dice game, and a bunch of other things that just pop up on my TBR. Of course, I also have the Studio Ghibli Readathon. I am a host for the Studio Ghibli Readathon that's happening for the entire month of June, so I'll link my announcement video if you have not seen it yet, but I'm very excited about this. And of course, being the kind of extra person that I am, even though I've really only technically committed to doing the prompts for Spirited Away, which was my movie when we planned this out, I had to come up with options to fulfill every single prompt on the bingo board, pretty much. So if you're looking for recommendations, check this out. Maybe slow it down to 0.5 speed. And then I'm just checking off the books I've already read at this point and adding on the little leftovers and other section where I'm just writing in everything from last month and other things that don't really fit into the readathon or the dice game TBR. And at the bottom I have my book clubs. So I have the Wires, I have the Host Club, and I also have the 20-something book club, as well as the Cruel Prince read-along. And on the right, I love to make my little tracker, so I have my reading tracker, where I just write all of the days that are left in the month at the time that I'm making the bullet journal spread here, and I write out the names of all of the titles that I have left that I still need to read for the month. And I use this to just track for the rest of the month what I am reading on each day. I just alternated colors here because I thought it would be a little bit more cute. I know you guys like to watch me write out my titles backwards, so I definitely left a lot of time on this video so that you guys could see it in its full glory. And if you're really paying attention, you'll see a whole bunch of books that are not in my June TBR because I can't control myself. I just keep taking out books that are not on the TBR because there are just so many interesting things that I want to read. And on the days that I read something, I just mark it with a little circle for that book on that day. And now we're moving on to my first weekly spread. So of course you're watching this in the future and this is a week that has already passed. But I just wanted to do something where I had a little picture or two and I just wrote out the days in a very simple manner so that way I could fill in this missing week that had already passed at this time. And it's sort of just the theme that I went with for this 2-page spread. So I drew this little picture and I made sure to just sort of leave like the white outline of everything in between for that more deserty look on the bottom. And on this bottom right, I just drew some mountains and some roses, clouds, and a moon again, because that's the vibe right now. It's very cute and easy to do. Just added in a couple extra stars and we're on to the next page where I lost a whole bunch of footage, so this is what I managed to salvage. But you'll see that I'm kind of just doing a larger version of what I did for my habit trackers, and I'm making each of these a column that will represent a different day of week 3. These landscapes were really fun to try out, and this is sort of an unofficial Badlands theme for this month. For these lines on the left, that last one looks really shaky, but I just tried to use the color that was directly above it from the drawing and then pull one of those colors to do the number as well. And because the weekend I tend to not have too much to talk about, I just made it a double little column over there. And on to the next week, I had a calendar over here, and I just highlighted which week it was and then wrote out the numbers again. And I made this little drawing on the left to just pull it all together, and this one looks kind of similar to the mood tracker. So I drew all these sort of mountains on the bottom and colored each of them in with a little white border in between each of these sections. And then I drew what I guess is kind of a sun on the top with all of the different rays of light in different directions. then I just have each of these boxes in a different color to represent each of the different days of the week. And I also have a little notes section since this is 8 boxes for 7 days. And now we have some more pictures. So I drew in another moon and clouds, even though it's not very Badland-y per se. I drew that in at first with a little bit of shading. And then I made a rainbow in the bottom right for Pride Month. And then I just sort of went back to that moon drawing on that top right, and I added some mountains and hills, and I colored it in a little bit more. I think it looks so much better colored in than it did on its own. I'm really happy that I went back and kind of took that drawing where it went. Now we're on to the last week, which is only 3 days for this month, and I thought I'd just do something really simple. So I have some gold washi tape and that really pretty wave washi tape, and I just wrote out the last 3 days of the month and stuck some on there. And I also put some more of that washi tape on the bottom because this right side page is my wrap-up. And we're already on to the final flip through. Really happy with how this turned out. I think it's very colorful and very cute. It's hard for me to say this is just a specifically Badlands themed bullet journal for this month because I think it's inspired by a lot of different things, but I kind of like this look that doesn't have any one particular set color or theme. I think it makes it a lot more interesting. Kind of late in the month, but if you set up your June bullet journal, or if you're already getting a head start and you're doing your July bullet journal, I'd love to know what theme you chose and what it is that you're planning for your next coming months. And if you have a favorite spread of yours or of mine, I would love to hear about it. And if you have any ideas for future themes that you want me to try out, can't promise that I will do them, but I will definitely consider them. So please let me know if you have any suggestions in the comments down below. That about wraps it up. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Rachel, this is Let Me in the Library, and I will see you next time. Bye.